very basic principle of Kabbalah is we start at oneness, and the process of creation, Kabbalists sometimes describe it as the shattering of the vessels.
Right.
What was one originally becomes a multitude of pieces. Quite a whole, probably, I suspect, had a holistic vision of that long before we talked about holism and such. Because the notion is each of those pieces then has within it still the whole of the whole. So although we live in a apparently fragmented world, the oneness is still in there. And then the whole, if one's looking at it that way, the whole purpose of life, of being incarnated, is to find ways to move oneself back towards the world. Well, not only oneself, to move oneself and through oneself, the world, and one's relationships and interactions back towards that. And it's called tikkun
Tikkun.
Tikkun, T-I-K-K-U-N in Kabbalah, which means reparation or restoration. It's repairing, having a. I think really essence, I mean for me, my way with Kabbalah is, I mean I might do things and practice things, but it's more holding somewhere that intention behind whatever practice. So I might be doing my morning meditation, which I do every morning, or I might be sitting watching the TV in the evening. It's still, if I'm in touch with it, there's that intention behind to do tikkun, to be looking at sort of a sense of how we can bring things back together rather than to encourage that process. And then when I say encourage, I think courage, heart. It's a heart process. So encouraging heart process. Heart as centre, as oneness, as the place where we really. Well, if I use that previous analogy, where we really are the conductor who is in touch with the composer. And
So there's something about the conductor here being the vessel. Is that right, or?
No, I'd say the personality and how one interacts with life is the vessel, and the conductor is the one who is looking at that specific vessel and seeing how it can be brought into relationship.
But for me, there's that image of the eye behind the eye.
Yes. Or the sacred heart behind the heart, isn't it? I mean, I'm not specific. I'm not at all a Christian by Christian standards, but I think actually I'm quite a serious Christian as well on another level, because I think that aspect of Christianity I really connect with, the sort of more experiential aspect and the sense of the sacred heart and the idea that through the inverted commas suffering of life, we're given the opportunity to come back to oneness. There's a phrase, actually it comes from Aleister Crowley, although people often now, people who know the phrase leave Aleister Crowley out of it and say, oh, it's from the, I do actually as well, it's from the Western mystery tradition. But the actual phrase is, divided for the sake of, divided for the sake of love and for the chance of union. So the notion that all our sense of division is, the purpose of the division is to give us the opportunity to experience the joy, the energy in coming back.
I guess that's very often how people experience Rumi's work.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
It's through that.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I sometimes think I'm a bit fancy with this, but one thing that Kabbalah really does is helps a practitioner of Kabbalah to be aware of the similar. It's not like a comparative religion process where you go, oh well, that's the same as that in another religion, but seeing that actually underneath it really is the same process always.
So for me, there's something in this then, Will, around kind of, well, I'm imagining that you're kind of, you value this, your kind of the spiritual practice, the Kabbalah, and maybe the other traditions that kind of lead one to that kind of depth experience, if you like, or depth understanding, as being important in your practice as a psychotherapist. And I wonder if it's possible to kind of just play around with what you imagine, you know, all the ways in which it might expand psychotherapeutic practice, if you can kind of sit in that place, if you like, or begin to, as you clearly do, you know, begin to put time into your practice, and then maybe what that kind of brings out.
What do you mean by put time into it?
Well, I guess actually, you know, maybe have a practice that, whether that's meditation or reading or whatever, that sort of reaffirms, you know, maybe daily that,
I
that
see.
kind of experience.
Yeah, I understand.
You know, yeah.
Well, I do. I mean, I'm not quite sure this is actually, on one level I think I'm answering what you're saying. I might be going off onto a slightly different track, but I think it's, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, I do about 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a little longer, sometimes it's half an hour. I call it silent meditation.
Yeah. Right.
The purpose, this is my morning meditation, the purpose is, you know, I wake up in the morning and process starts happening, you know, I start connecting with the day, my body usually first, and then thoughts and ideas come into my mind about, you know, well, they're often about how I'm feeling in my body, actually. But then other things come in, you know, it's a day where I'm seeing lots of clients, maybe, or Jan's coming to talk to me this morning, or whatever comes into my mind, you know. And I notice then that, then emotions and feelings arise out of that. Oh God, I've got to see Fred at 10 o'clock today, or, you know, what's happening with Fred, or oh, I'm busy with my book this morning. Have I really got time for Jan coming? Oh, I've got to get rushed on this morning. No, whatever, those things start happening, and that's like a fragmentation process. Yeah. So I notice that first. I'm still lying in bed. I'm noticing that process sort of coming in, and that's where I choose to move into the meditation, because that gives me an opportunity to well, I just start off with my breath, and then the intention always with that is well, it's absolutely not to do anything. It's just to come to becoming, space of becoming, and allow the becoming to happen. So, I'm not sure I necessarily think about this or notice it specifically on an everyday basis, but I know from years of doing that it has a. But by the fact I've touched into that in the morning there, it underpins, it gives me some strength, I guess, underneath. And then on days when I'm seeing clients, I guess that's what we're talking about, because we're talking about it in practice sort of sense. We don't have a cat anymore, because she died a few years ago, and we haven't felt ready to have another cat. When we had a cat, I used to find the cat was very helpful for doing this. I have to do it myself now without the cat. When I finished in the day of working with clients, I'll spend, sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes it's a little longer, but I always spend some moment when I will reconnect to just, I mean, I don't get to silence, but it's just a matter of affirming that's inside as part of the process of shifting. Well, it's two things. I think the cat thing I was saying is a bit about kind of absorbing and allowing that energy that's been created in me and perhaps in the room when I'm working. That's why we had a cat was great. She would just be able to walk around, you know.
I have a cat too.
Yeah. But I think it's also, this is helpful sharing this, because I'm not sure I sort of really necessarily ever really think about this or connect with it, but I think it's also about, well, it's obvious really, it's about bringing it. No, it's two things, because I keep wanting to go to what I'm consciously doing, which is bringing me back to myself. But I think it's also kind of affirming the oneness underlying again, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, inner silence is probably the most important thing. And there's two sides to that. One is the kind of, like my morning I'm describing, you know, kind of being aware of the fragmentation happening and then coming back to a sense of oneness. But I know that's all, in my experience, that's all, it's like putting petrol in a tank, you know, in my car. I'm going to go further then in my, perhaps more serious, no, that's not the right way to say it, but in my deeper practices. Because then I also, this is where Kabbalah becomes perhaps a little bit more shamanic in its process. I also see all of this, my work with clients, all my meditation practices and whatever, as part of my personal and spiritual development. And a major part of that for me is strengthening what I connect with as my etheric body, and the importance of that for my own tikkun.